So next thing is the election. So one of the things that a lot of the residents came to say was that, and maybe we should handle this better if we ever have this happen again, which where we have write-in candidates. A lot of the residents felt like people knew who they were voting for because they had to take more time out to write down the person's name, and that they didn't feel it was really private. And since the poll watchers were writing their names down, they felt that they were being intimidated on who to vote for or who not to vote for. And so I think that is something that we should look at if and when that, we have that again. I'm not sure how to handle it. I'm not sure if there could be a screen up, or I don't know.
Right, so I would have like a little half screen, definitely.
Because the little booth they didn't feel was like really,
Right.
they very clearly, people knew who they were voting for.
Okay.
I've got one more of the big things in my basement, we can put that back up there again.
One of the big screens.
Oh, the booth,
Oh, the booth.
there were 2 booths.
I can
One of them
speak,
got thrown out, because, so I started having one more in my basement, we just refurbished that one.
I can speak to Mr. Garfinkel, he might have a recommendation, because he was here, I'll talk to him and see what he has to
Yeah,
say.
he was actually, some of the people said stuff to him, so he'll know what
Okay.
you're talking
Or we
about.
could, or
So,
we could buy something like the school uses with the stand that you stand at. Buy 2 of them,
okay.
put them in the corners, people stand there. Although they still have to stand in your writing, if you're writing on the right situation.
Every election has a write-in availability.
That has a higher side, it's also.
Yeah, but you can't see what somebody's doing. It's a timing thing. You can't control how people are going to feel. People are going to say they feel intimidated by this or that, whatever that is. You're going to wind up doing all kinds of things. And it's an election, and people are going to hopefully be proud to go in and vote. How are you going to control that people think that somebody's watching them? I just think that
Well, if there's a curtain or if there's a
Have a couple.
cubicle.
you can't see what the person is doing. So if people feel that if they're doing a write-in, that somebody will know it because they're taking longer or something, I guess that's,
I heard that from many people.
yeah, so what?
Because they felt that they would be intimidated on who to vote for.
Yeah, but then they might feel that, they're being, voices are being tapped by the Martians or something. You can't control how people feel. As long as nobody can see what you're doing, and you have the privacy area, you can take as much time or as little time as you want. So, I mean, we're supposed to jump on
Having
that.
some privacy for voting, though, is not a bad thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying they already have privacy. What we're talking about is how long somebody takes to complete the voting process.
Is that what we were talking about?
No, we're talking about the fact that people felt that because they were taking their time to do that, you knew that they were doing a write-in candidate. And
So
people,
how would, that's, okay. So,
but they felt because now they had to give their name, they gave their name obviously, okay. There was a list created of who was voting, that now certain people in the room knew who they voted for, and they didn't like that. Their vote's supposed to be private. Their vote's supposed to be private.
Privacy is a good thing. You're not going to,
yeah, but what
how
I'm
long
saying
it
is,
takes is a different subject.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, we would have to go to heroic lengths to somehow control that. Is that nobody can see they have privacy as far as what they're actually putting on the ballot. Right? So if they feel that somebody is watching them, or that they're taking a long time, so therefore they must be putting down write-in candidates.
I disagree. I don't think residents should feel intimidated
That's
on
what
where
I'm
they're
saying.
voting.
So
right?
they're gonna feel intimidated.
You shouldn't feel like you're intimidated.
You shouldn't be intimidated anyway, so privacy is, we have to have privacy, we'll look into that.
All right, well, I'm just wondering how trying out one of the old voting booths is going to control that.
Well, let me speak to Mr. Garfinkel and see what because he was doing this for 30 years, or something like that.
Okay.
Is it possible that we can either sit down there and anybody who wants to be on the ballot is automatically put on the ballot?
No,
There's a process.
there is a process and you can't unless we go to,
Change state law.
which we're not gonna start doing this year, so that's not gonna happen. Okay. Okay, so then that brings up, the next thing is that I sent you guys all a copy of the bill for the candidates, and I'll be asking for everyone to approve this in the resolutions. I don't know.
I had to ask you for the retainer.
For him.
I don't know, it's, basically you said
There was no
the
retainer.
bill for legal services per retainer, 526.16.
Right, there was no retainer. This is it. This is the bill.
That's the bill. Who's it to?
Well, it was sent to me by email, but first to find out who's gonna pay for it, so. It's to me, John, Sandy, Gary,
Who's the money going to?
would be going to Bob Lewis. Right,
Okay, and you're asking for the taxpayers to pay for
yes.
candidates?
Yeah.
Under what, is there a law saying that that should or shouldn't be done? I had spoken to Wade, and he said that that's not anything that the village should be doing.
I feel, and this is just my opinion, that in the future, if the candidates don't have this bill paid for, anybody who has more money than another candidate can knock them off the ballot and make them a writing candidate. And that will give that person an advantage. We know that's an advantage when you're not the writing candidate. We already know that, okay? So the fact that if I have more money than you and I sue you, and I keep you in court to the point that you're not going to be able to be on the ballot.
Wow.
Then what will happen is I could easily have the advantage. I don't think that's a fair thing for anybody who wants to volunteer in this village. And I also don't want anyone to not come forward and volunteer because they're afraid this might happen.
And then there was no retainer, so there was no signed document
No retainer.
about what the attorney was addressing and who he was representing?
Yes, there's
Just the candidates?
just the candidates, that's it.
Just the candidates. And is there an availability in state law for the village to pay certain candidates?
I have to review what you're talking about, I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with what you're talking about now. I mean, I'm generally familiar, obviously, but I would have to see, probably what you might consider doing is just putting this over, letting me look at it. Just, how much is the bill we're talking about?
$5,005.
Yeah, let me take a look at it.
Okay.
Could you give me a written opinion from council about the statutory authority for the village to pay for
Well, it
private citizens?
would be to the board, so, let me look into it.
Okay, I would appreciate if I could have that. Could you ask the attorney to provide me with a written opinion? Before I vote on something like this, I have to know that we're able to do this.
Well, I'll have some kind of comment, I asked for time to take a look at
I
it.
spoke to Wade today at NICOM, and he said, "What are you kidding?"
Okay, so you'll look into it and advise us whether it can be done or not, and then the board can vote on it,
Yes.
correct?
You just provide me with the background information.
Okay. Oh, any comments?
You don't wanna hear my comments.
And how, what's the criteria for picking who gets taxpayers' money as far as candidates go? I'd like to see that also.
Okay. I guess the person being sued.
Right or wrong?
Yeah.
And if the person that was right or wrong on who didn't get the money, that makes no difference either.
I don't know, that's their opinion.
It's not my opinion,
No,
I'm
because
asking
they
you.
did no legal.
I have no comment.
There needs to be a criteria when you pick a certain class out of a group, why you're picking them. And I'm just asking for that criteria,
Okay.
as well as the legal authority to do it.
I think the criteria is that you have a group of people that are volunteering to come and run positions in the village, and they shouldn't be subject to being sued when they're a volunteer.
Good. Can you put that in writing and send it to me, please?
Perhaps.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing.
I guess my
that,
lawsuit's going away.
There's no talking out there.
The next thing that we wanted to look into was term limits for the mayor and for the trustees. Okay, so I sent over a copy of a law to be looked at and to be edited and to see what everyone thought. This is very common, and a lot of villages are doing this now. Brightwater, Amityville did it. They changed so that each term, instead of being 2 years, would be 4 years, and it would only be for 2 terms. And there were a lot of reasons for it, mostly for just not having the same person over and over again. So, what does everyone think? Has it feel? Do you want to keep pursuing this? What do we want to do?
I think that's a good idea.
What's the process to legally change the terms of office?
Well, we'd have to have a public hearing, but
It's a local law that's
it's a
subject to.
local law that would be changed. Right?
Right, it's a local law.
This is not the law, this is just a draft to just start the discussion, so. John, any comments?
I'm all for it.
I have a question. The villages who have already done this, do they have paid positions?
Some do not.
It's one of the things that I thought of when I just saw this was that, you know, I can understand the justification for it and some good reasons, but a real concern that I would have is that, you know, we don't get, it's a tough job, and we don't get a lot of people stepping forward to do it. This is volunteer, and I would think if we had paid positions, you'd have more people, and then there's more turnover, and that's a good thing, although it takes a while, as you probably know, to really get the hang of what's going on. It's a lot to do in an unpaid position. So what happens if we don't have candidates who step up? You don't have an incumbent being able to run again, and we don't have anybody to do it.
What happens
We
next?
had that situation where we had people run unopposed and nobody wanted to do
It
it.
would be a combination of appointments or holdovers. You know, somebody may continue in office, or if they don't want to, then it may be an appointment until the position could be filled. It would be, technically, the position would be, on the date of the election, if there was nobody running, and this has happened before in villages, if the incumbent doesn't want to run and there's nobody else from the outside that would like to run, the position becomes technically vacant on the date of the election, or the date that the term ends. The incumbent's term ends, and then the board can make an appointment.
The board can appoint the mayor.
Yes,
Who wants to-
or a trustee.
But then we'd have to have somebody willing to do
Willing
it.
to take it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Was there any background reason for saying that if somebody wants to go and the people want to vote that person in, that they shouldn't be able to?
I don't understand your question.
As Jeff was saying, there's somebody who's doing a great job, there's a volunteer, there's nobody willing to do it. The person who is running for the third term is willing to do it. But this law would say that they can't.
They can't do it, they wouldn't be able to do it.
They
well,
wouldn't be
in
able
the
to do it.
in the presidency you can.
Right.
You
But
can't
it
be-
was at one time.
Right,
So
but
there's
there's
a
always
reason
somebody
for
else,
it.
yeah, but there's always somebody else. In a long little village, in a
Right.
non-paying position,
They're not always.
Is
Do
that
we
Yes.
want to have paid positions?
well,
That will bring better people up to the.
So the law,
I'm just saying, I'm asking if it's not broken, why fix it?
the sample law that I saw says consecutive terms. So if there's a gap between term 2 and term 3, then it wouldn't be consecutive. So
Right.
that if there was a gap for a few days and then they got reappointed, then that would probably be okay. It says 2
Well, then why even go through the whole process if that's what somebody's gonna do?
But
The
I can
people
tell-
have
I can tell you.
the right, okay, to vote somebody out. If that person's not doing a good job, they'll vote that person out.
Right, but what I can tell you is, and you'll see this after being here 2 years, you start getting into it and you start having these projects, and then if you choose to run again and you don't win, now you pass it on to the next person. It really takes you time, and everyone, I think, can say here, to get to know what you're doing. 4 years is a good amount of time. You can finish what you're doing and move on, okay? And I personally feel if the President of the United States can have 2 terms, the mayor of Poquott or a trustee of Poquott can have 2 terms. And what I saw in this election is so many people came forward to volunteer after this election,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that really would be an issue anymore, because there's many people who have said, I'll run next time, I wanna be involved next time. So, I don't know, what the answer is, I'm putting up there to start talking about it, and we don't have a law right now at all, so.
And I'm not saying I'm for or against it, I'm
All right.
just wondering why it needs to be fixed. Because how many mayors did we have for 10, 12 years that did a good job up until the time they left?
All of them.
Mhm.
There's no limit in it. I think each mayor
Right.
or trustee had the best interest of the village at heart. But what happens is, it starts to become what you want personally, not necessarily what the residents want. Because you fall into these habits of just doing what you want to do. That's how I feel, in my opinion. Okay, so Joe will send this